We are most fortunate to have Edwina from Ireland as our speaker. And I have asked Hannah to introduce her to us. Is Hannah in the room?
Hey guys. Hi. No, I'm so self-obsessed and full of fear, but okay, here we go. I'm Anna, I'm an addict. Yes, and I'm here to announce Edwina. And oh my God, I got touched already. But I'm forever grateful that this woman crossed my path and that she could show me the way to my God as I see him and it, her, I don't know, whatever. Yeah, she really showed me how to live recovery and how to practice these principles. And yeah, she's just amazing. And she will tell you in a bit, you know, you will see it by yourself. I don't have to tell you all. And you know, she has one amazing skill. She can eat the bitter balls, but with cutlery, with fork and knife. She eats her bitter balls. That's definitely a skill. No. No, Edwina, I really love you, and it's amazing to have you in my life, and I'm so grateful for you in my life, and I think I've said that 3 times now. So come up here, give her a big applause. She's a You're so beautiful.
I'll pull the chair, but I might not say. Thanks, everybody. I'm Edwina, and I'm an addict. And thanks, Hannah. Hannah was sitting down beside me saying she was nervous to introduce me. I said, what a selfish bitch. I have to go up and share. What about me? But I get it. And I was really nervous as well. I'm always nervous when I have to come and do a share. And it's normally the same stuff, you know. They won't understand me. They won't like me. Especially the Dutch aren't going to understand my accent. And, you know, it all goes back to the same stuff. You could say it's just, you know, wrapped in the bondage of myself. But I suppose it's also me little low self-esteem as well and just wanting to be part of. And I know a lot of people here, not everybody, but this is me tribe. And this is where I feel most at home. Joyce was just saying when we were having dinner, she remembers somebody saying to her when she came around first, like, welcome home. And I remember hearing that too. So for anyone that's new here, welcome home. This is where I found me. This is where I found me tribe. This is where I found connection. This is where I found hope, faith, courage. And before we start, I might just start off with a little prayer, just because I can and I want to. Good to see my pal over there, Pink and Mikey. You must have just arrived. Or maybe you didn't. So yeah, maybe if everybody just closes down the eyes and tries to get unwrapped from the bondage of themselves and just listen to the prayer. Press down the eyes. God, we miss you. We miss you so very much. We seem to have lost our way and we are very lonely without you. We want to come home to you more than our hearts can bear. Thank you for our complete defeat. Thank you for the pain of the downward journey. Thank you for leading us to each other and to the path of seeking you. Please allow each of us this weekend to experience your presence and through that to show others how to know you. May we always be in the present moment with you. Amen. Yeah. And I suppose that's it. You know, when come up here and I'm nervous about sharing and I try ring me sponsor or say anything about it, she just tells me the same thing. Shut up. You're there to carry the message to the newcomer. It's not about you. It's not about Mikey who's around yours or Nadie who's your pal or Lucy or anyone else. It's about the newcomer. And I know for a fact there's a lot of newcomers here. So if my little hope is just to carry the message that God has definitely turned up in my life, showed off and restored me to some bit of sanity. But has restored me to sanity definitely around alcohol and drugs. And I'll touch a little bit on what it was like for me before I came here. You know, what happened and how I try live my life today through Cocaine Anonymous. And yeah, I celebrated 8 years sobriety in April, so I'm just over 8 years. It's amazing, really. And I was trying to just remember that when I was hearing the readings being read out, because I couldn't hear too much of the readings because the mind, but I was trying to remember, Edwina, you are clean and sober today, you know, and it hasn't been easy sailing. You know, life happens, but you know what it was like for me growing up. I'm from Ireland, you know, and if you're new around here, when we try identify, it's really just to identify how we felt growing up and what happened with the drugs and the drink and the feelings we got from them. Like, you know, so my story is not going to be the same as everybody else's, but it's the only story I have, so it's the only story you're getting. But and it doesn't change. Actually, sometimes it does, because my perception, the weller I get as I go along in my recovery, I realise I might have exaggerated or underestimated a few things, but that's a different kettle of fish. But, you know, I grew up in an alcoholic home. Both my parents were alcoholic. And I have, you know, half my family, half my sisters are drug addicts, alcoholics, some dead, some homeless. And then the other half are normal. They're actually normal, like, and you know, they're much younger than us, the normal ones. So I say, okay, we can't stay blaming the parents, you know. But a lot of people can remember when they picked up a drug or a drink for the very first time, and I kind of remember that. People can remember the feelings they got the first time they used drink. I don't remember that stuff. I just know that I loved alcohol and drugs from a really young age. Like I have to suck the bits in now. And yeah, and like I remember being as young as 9. Oh, Denmark's in the house. Let's just see. Denmark in the house. As young as 9 and taking me first drink and getting really sick from it. And I only remember that because it was my older sister's 16th birthday. So I remember drinking vodka, getting really sick from it. You know, and I remember taking drugs really young, like really young. I had, you know, it's like, I remember being 15, going to the rave scenes and coming back from raves and smoking bags of heroin back at house parties at 15, you know. So without going into too much of the detail, what it was like growing up, there was drugs and lots of them from the get-go. And I loved them. I loved the effects of alcohol and drugs. Did I use every day at that age? No. Was I very chaotic and manic? Yeah. Was there a little part of me that knew better and always wanted better? Absolutely. And I see that in all my story and all my years of using. There was always something inside me that knew this isn't the way the world is supposed to be. It's not supposed to look this way, and it's not supposed to be like this. But anyway, I don't want everybody else done here. I instead use, and instead of trying to control it, instead drinking, it was getting me into trouble. You know, I got into relationships like most people because I thought that would sort me out. Got me first rejection well, probably not my first one, but, you know, experienced rejection, couldn't cope with that. Tried to kill myself. You know, the usual kind of stories. You know that part of the book where it says we're maladjusted to life? I really understand that now. I get rejected and my idea is I want to die straight away, and then when that doesn't work, I'll just use loads of drugs. But, you know, growing up, like, was, you know, it was very chaotic in my home, and I always try to touch on 1 or 2 stories that happened to me around what happened to me growing up, and then what happened to me as an adult, because they really see in my recovery, they're really parts of my story that, although they were quite sad and traumatic going through them, I really see now as a woman in recovery who's experienced a lot of stuff, I wouldn't change that part of my story. You know, if you're here and you're full of trauma and you have other stuff going on, if you recover around here and do what's necessary to get well and, you know, heal yourself, you'll look back on those things and without being grateful for them, but you'll really see that they have shaped me into the woman I am today. A woman who has a very big heart and who has a lot of experience around stuff and who's very, you know, that part where it says, you know, our darkest past becomes our greatest asset. I really see that in my story. Like, and when I was really young, my mother, who's also an addict alcoholic, she's actually in recovery now. She's in AA. And but when we were young, she was going through her own stuff, and her idea to cope with that was to kill herself too. But her idea was to kill her children. So she tried to kill me and my sisters and herself, and in turn, she gave us all an overdose, and we were sick in hospital, and we were taken off her. So it was that kind of trauma, and you know that thing of rejection. You know, you're rejected by my mother, and then years later, when I was a teenager, my father rang me up one day to tell me he was going to kill himself because he was going through rejection in his life. And he did kill himself. And I named them two things because they were my two primary carers in my life. They were my two, you know, gods, if you like, growing up. And both them, in their own way, I suppose, were rejecting themselves, but rejected me. So when I found, for me, my drug of no choice, you know, I loved all drugs. I was a big cocaine user too, but my drug was heroin. And I always say when I started using it at 16, 17, full time, you know, I really felt like I was back in a womb. I was safe. I was protected. I was minded. And if anyone's an addict alcoholic here, they'll know what that feeling is like. It doesn't matter what the drug is or what the drink is. You get that sense of ease and comfort. You get that sense of, you know, not caring. You get the relief from the bondage of the mind, whatever way you want to call it. But I ran with that for years. But like I said, I knew that wasn't the way it was supposed to be. And I was always trying to get clean. I was always trying to go to school, get a little job, do the right thing, have a relationship. But, you know, I had zero skills at that. Like, I had loads of skills at taking drugs and drinking. And, you know, when I was 19, I decided I would move out of Dublin. I'm from Dublin city centre. So I said I will move 100 miles away. I met somebody who lived on a farm and I thought, hi, Alistair and Matt, welcome. Come and take a seat. The London boys are here. And I thought, I'll get married. I'll live down in the country. I'll bake bread and I'll have babies and I'll make daisy chains and, you know, I'll live happily ever after. Mike, I didn't see you. Sorry, that's my friend from Ibiza. I didn't know he was coming. Oh. Sorry. It's just so good to see everyone. But I don't know if anybody else here suffers with that disease of like Fantasylands. And I moved down there at 18 and of course the drugs and the drink follow, don't they? You know, it works for a little while because that's what happens to us. We get shiny, nice things and it's all great. And it's like, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I needed. But it wears off so quickly. You know, anything I've ever got, I've always got everything I wanted. If I want something, I'll get it. I think most of us are like that. When we put our minds to it, we want something, we're going to get it. And I got all that shiny stuff, but nothing ever made me happy. I remember my ex-husband saying to me, nothing makes you happy, Edwina. And me thinking, how fucking dare he? But he was so right. He was so right. And, you know, I thought, okay, I'll get married and that will fix me. So I got married. Of course, that didn't work. You know, I was still using and drinking. Then I thought I'll have a family because if I have a baby, I will not do to my children what my mother and father done. I will love the babies. I will nurture the babies. I will do all them things. And really in my heart, that's what I wanted to do. But I hadn't got the power to do that. And I used during my pregnancy on my first daughter. And I don't say that lightheartedly. I say that because if you're new around here and carry that same shame that I carried as a parent coming in here, it really helped me. And then you know, I came here and I heard other people share that this disease is much greater than your maternal instincts, which are probably the strongest instincts on the planet, but this disease is greater. You know, I liked hearing that because I couldn't explain why I was using, even though I didn't want to use when I had a baby growing inside me. I couldn't explain that when my ex-husband would say to me, "What the fuck? You picked up again? Why, Edwina?" And I would try to come up with 100 excuses, but in my heart, I didn't have a reason. I didn't have a reason why. I didn't know what I suffered with. So I just thought I was selfish, and which I later found out I was, but you know, that's a whole different story. But, you know, when Ella was only 2, I was told, go to treatment. I was only 23 or 4, go to treatment, sort out your shit or you're going to lose your family. So I went to treatment. And I went in thinking, you know, alcohol is different because that's what most of us think when we come in here first. And I know there's somebody here that thinks that because I was talking to them only a few minutes ago. I thought alcohol is fine. I'm just a drug addict. I just have to stop taking certain drugs. I happened to be working as a pharmacist technician at the time. Don't ask how I got into that job. It wasn't very honest, but I was working there. So I don't like to say too much about that job when stuff's been recorded, but let's just say Edwina thought she was working in a candy shop. And then, you know, I get out of the treatment centre. I go to 90 meetings in probably 30 days because I was doing 2 or 3 meetings a day because that's what I was told to do. I was talking to somebody else who said that they were told in treatment not to do steps. Talking to somebody just before the meeting about that. Like, some places can tell you a lot of... Anyway, I was told just go to lots of meetings. Don't be minding steps, don't be minding the book, don't be minding anything else. Crazy, crazy stuff for people to tell you, like, because that was not what I needed to hear. However, I don't think I was ready to recover then either because I had that reservation for the alcohol. I didn't understand the disease. I didn't know. I never heard, you know, about obsessions of the mind, physical allergies, what happens when you put one in. I never heard any of that language. And even if it was being talked about, I wasn't able to hear that message. I just didn't. So I got 6 months when I got out there of going to loads of meetings. And can I say, I was absolutely manic. When I look back, God help the people living with me because there's nothing worse than a dry drunk or a dry addict, like, that's trying to stay clean and sober, white knuckling. It's very painful for people to live with us. So of course I picked up again. And when I picked up, it was a drink. I was on holiday in Spain with me ex-husband, my daughter, and I was pregnant on my second daughter. And I thought, you know enough information now. You can have one drink. Nobody will know. You can go back to AA. There was no CA where I lived at the time. You can go back to AA when you go home and all will be okay. And I picked up that drink and it lasted me 6 years of in and out and in and out and in and out. It was horrendous, like, you know, and very necessary though. I look back on the story now, no regrets. You know, I see it was necessary as part of the journey. You know, but all the stuff I was told that you hear in the meetings that will happen, happened. Because this is what the disease does. It takes and takes and takes, you know, takes the dignity and the respect and all those kind of things away from you, but it also takes the people in your life away from you. You know, my ex-husband left and he tried to remove the kids from me, only that I'm such a big bully. He was afraid and he had to ring social services and police and get all that stuff involved. And I don't know about anybody else, but I am a fantastic actress, you know, and I made out that he was the bad person and he was this, and he was not any of those things. But I believed at the time he was. Because that's also what I suffer with, the disease of the truth and the perception. And in my world, he was wrong and I was right. And it wasn't the truth. He was trying to protect his family. Anyway, he had the sense, you know, to get out of the marriage. And it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, even though at the time I was devastated, you know. But it just created for more using at the time. And, you know, I crashed the cars. I ended up with a collapsed lung in a coma. And when I woke up out of the coma after 2 days, my mind didn't say to me, now, Edwina, it might be a good idea to get clean now. You know, my mind said, use while you're in hospital because you'll be able to do whatever you like and the doctors will give you whatever you need and they'll pump you up with whatever you need and you can get well when you go home. Because that's what my mind always told me. It was always a good idea to use today and get clean tomorrow. And I often share like those little stories because, you know, people think, oh, that'll be enough to wake her up. It was never enough to wake me up. Going to court for custody with me children to give clean urines. I always used to, like, you know, try use to give a clean urine in 3 days' time. And then, like, I'd say, I have to be clean for 3 days for the urine. But on day 2, I'd say, I'll chance it. I'll drink loads of water. I'll do this. And just the madness of it. And then turning up with a dirty urine to court and bringing me baby with me and explaining to her in the toilet to pee into the cup when she was only 3 and saying to her, you have a kidney infection. I need your urine. Now, I say them, and it sounds a bit doom and gloom, like, you know, someone has to get up. But it's just, it's to show, like, the lengths we go to use. Like, it shows how powerful the disease is. I don't want to be in the toilet in courthouses with me babies, telling them they're sick, trying to get their urine off them. But this disease was always so much greater, and I'm always going to use no matter what. No matter what. And look, what happened, that's what it was like. You know, what happened is me last year or 2 of using, probably longer, but was like the Groundhog Day. I was separated. I was at home with the kids half the week. I was trying my best to earn money. I always had enough money for drugs because I don't know about anybody else, but we always seem to locate the money that's needed. And every day I would buy enough drugs that day to do me for that day and night, because I'd be up in the middle of the night. You know, I'm one of them addicts that use a little bit and go to bed. And then I say, I'll go and do one more. And then I'm in and out all night. I'm hiding it in the bathroom, even though I'm living alone. But anyway, this particular night, I went to bed using, and I woke up the next morning to me 2 daughters. They were about 7 and 3 at the time. Mammy, are you getting up? And I said, yeah, I'll be down in a minute. Bring your sister downstairs. And I'm lying in the bed, and the battle is on. We all know the battle. So my head is saying, you need to use if you're going to want to get through today. And my heart is saying, no, I don't want to use anymore. I don't want to fucking use anymore. I want to get clean. I can't keep doing this. Dying in the bed. Don't know, did Martin show my before picture? It's not very flattering. But I was in that battle for about 3 hours in the bed, thinking, I have to go downstairs to the kids. I have to go down. And I had no power to get out of the bed. No power. And then I do what we do. I text the drug dealer, can you meet me? And he says, yeah. And all of a sudden then I have a belt of power. I'm up out of the bed, I'm dressed, I'm downstairs, I'm doing everything I need to do. The symptoms are getting relieved. Before I even get the drug into my body, I feel better. Before I even get the bag in my hand, I feel better. I have power. I mean, I have power to get up and do stuff. Before that, I was stuck to the bed and couldn't move. You know, that shows you how much of a mind-power disease we suffer with. And you can see, I see that in recovery with stuff. If I'm getting stuff or new relationships or arguments or rage, it's nearly like using. You get a belt of power from them things as well. And that's what, you know, happened this particular morning. I was screaming at the kids to get them out the door because they wouldn't move quick enough. Because, you know, we might look all angelic in recovery, but, you know, when we're very sick from drugs, there's nearly spit coming from the mouth with the anger. You know, the needing to get the drugs, the needing for stuff to go the way you want it to go. And I was screaming at the kids that particular day to leave the house quick. Get out, get out, get out. And I dropped them off to someone's house, and I was driving off to meet the dealer. I caught a glimpse of Lucy, my youngest girl, in the mirror, and she was crying. She was only 3 at the time. She was crying. And I remember feeling, I had seen this happen a million times before, but for whatever reason that day, Edwina happened to be broken enough. And I remember just feeling the whole way leaving, you are the most useless mother on this planet. You are a useless wife, a useless sister, a useless daughter. Nobody can stick you. Them children would be better off without you. And then my mind just saying, just get the bag into you. If you just get the bag into you, you'll be able to go home. You'll be able to sit with the kids. You'll be able to bring them to the playground. You'll be able to just be. I just wanted to be able to be connected to my own babies, to be connected to anybody. Because we're so far disconnected from people, from everybody, from ourselves. And that day I used in the car. I got the bag and I used in the car. And I can't remember if I got stoned from it or whatever, but what I do remember for the very first time while using, I got this moment of clarity, a different perspective, a rude awakening, a spiritual awakening, whatever word you want to label it. But for that second in the car, I realised, Edwina, no one else is the problem in your life. You are the problem in your life. You are the woman who is being created all this. You are the one that has to do something different. You are the one that needs to change. And it's amazing. It sounds really simple, but until you have that kind of shift in perception where you realise actually you're the fucking problem, nobody else, because we love to blame the trauma, the abuse. And I had all of them. I had the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, the mental abuse, the parent trying to kill me, the father killing himself. I had a great story. The husband then abandoning me, poor me. Left with the sheep and the cows on my own, making daisy chains. You know, I had the story, but it didn't matter anymore. It didn't matter. Thank God it didn't matter. And that was February 2014. It took me until the April to get detoxed and into another centre to get removed from the substance. But something changed inside me. And I hear loads of other people sharing, and I rob different words to try and match it up to how I felt. You know, broken enough to let God in, broken enough to let a bit of light and a bit of hope in, whatever word, rude awakening, spiritual awakening, whatever you want to put on it. But I had a shift inside me. I know now today it was God, but at the time I didn't know what it was, but I knew something was different. I went to treatment. While in treatment, for anyone that does H&I service, I'm always in debt to those people, and I always do service in that area. Because some people came in from Cocaine Anonymous, and in the treatment centre, you had to go to the CA meeting. Now, I was one of them people who thought CA people were snobs, so I wasn't going to their fellowship, right? I was only going to go to NA or AA, and I love all fellowships, but CA is my home. I love CA, but at the time, because Edwina never knows what's best for her, said, no, I'm not going. How dare they have their own fellowship? But, you know, really, when you look at it, it was just the fear of being rejected and the fear they wouldn't love me and accept me because they would look down on me. But I didn't know that at the time because I was so arrogant and so fearful. Anyway, I was told, fucking go or get out. So I went, and my God, the same thing happened to me that always happens to me in my life. I never know what's best for me. If it's one thing I've learned over the years about myself is you don't know what's best for you, Edwina. And I have adapted that in a lot of situations in my life, but I went anyway. And when I went, a lady read from the big book, and I'm going to read this little part just because, you know, it was read to me. And I always say, I hope this hits somebody in the heart, someone that's here that's new. I hope it makes sense to somebody, because when she read it out, I thought, wow, I didn't really know Anton, but I knew that she carried a message with depth and weight. Didn't know them words either, but I thought, God, I want a bit of that. I want to feel a bit of that. And she just read from the doctor's opinion, the small paragraph, men and women, can't find it now, men and women drink essentially because they like the effects produced from alcohol or drugs, full stop. Stop wrecking your head, Edwina. Stop analysing it. Stop blaming, looking, searching. You drank and used because you like the effects produced. I mean, hands up who loves the effects produced from alcohol and drugs. We all did, obviously, because we kept going and going and going till the bitter end. And it goes on to say that the sensation is so elusive that after a while we admit it injurious, and we cannot after time differentiate the true from the false. I could not tell the true from the false. I was living a really manic life, trying to be a wife and a mother and an employee, and then living this active addiction, junkie life of getting money in places I shouldn't have been getting money, having affairs, not coming home, leaving me children, all them kind of things, and thinking I was okay, and I couldn't tell the true and the false, and always comparing myself to others. You know, and it goes on to say that we are restless, irritable and discontented. I mean, I am a walking restless, irritable and discontent. I'd love to tell you all up here, 8.5 years in, I don't, you know, suffer with that as often. I do. I fucking do. I have to work on my programme daily to get through that stuff, you know. And how does, obviously, you know, it's not as bad to get that in there. I was just saying to Nadia, I think it's worse. The longer you go on. But, you know, when you're 2 years in, you're like, hey, everybody, it's so good to see you. And you're like running over. And now I'm like, I need to go to my room. I need some time alone. But anyway, sorry frightening off the newcomers, but we're restless, irritable and discontent. And how does that look in my life? You know, that restlessness. Jesus asked me children constantly up and down, cleaning, giving out. My life's so boring, so dissatisfied. You know, the irritability is a huge one. Like I road rage. Any other road rage people here? Yeah. I like to beep the horn. Not as much lately, but, you know, and give the finger. Don't do that anymore. Well, you know, yeah. And then the discontent, you know, I'll be okay if I get the relationship back. That was a big one for me when I come into recovery first. I'll be okay if I get my marriage back. I'll be okay if I get the house, if we go for a divorce. I'll be okay if I get a new job. I'll be okay if I get always looking for something on the outside to fill me inside. And let me tell you, if anyone is sitting here tonight thinking, I'll be okay if this on the outside changes, it's a lie. It's an absolute lie. And it goes on to say that unless we, you, me, and everyone here who's suffering can experience an entire psychic change, there's very little hope for a recovery. And what's an entire psychic change? It's the new mind. How do we get the new mind? We get that by going through the 12 steps. That's what the book is about. That's what the whole program is about. It's about getting us in touch with God. It's about unraveling all the stuff, getting an understanding of our disease. You know, nobody wants to do the steps when they come in here. I didn't want to do them, but I knew I was a desperate dying woman that time round. I absolutely knew. And I asked that woman that day in the treatment centre, I was only there a week, will you sponsor me and help me when I get out of here in a few weeks? She said she would. And she took me through the process of the steps. And from that day to this, the thoughts of using or drinking, have they been there? I'm sure they have. Has it ever looked like a good idea? Absolutely not. It hasn't. Like, it has been removed from me. And loads of stuff happens. You know, and when you're going through the steps and you have your own experience, it's like taking an E. Anybody ever take an E and come up on a great buzz? You know, the E days. And maybe everyone's too young here to remember the ecstasy days, but Mikey, you surely remember them. So, like, taking the steps is like taking a drug. Like, you can't, like, if you know, we're drug addicts. We'd never live off somebody else's experience on the bag. We want a taste of it. And the steps are the same way. You have to take your own. Just pretend it's a tablet, the book, and take it, you know. And every step I went through, although I didn't want to do it, I done it because I knew my life depended on it. I done it because I knew there was no other way, because I had tried all the other ways. You know, the 4th step, who wants to come in and admit they're powerless over anything and that their life is unmanageable? Nobody. Nobody wants to admit that. I most certainly didn't want to admit that. But what happened when I did, and I believe that happened for me before I even went into treatment this time round. And what happened for me when I done it? I got instant relief. The same way when I took a drink or a drug, I get instant relief. And that's what happened when I done the step. Same with step 2. No one wants to come to believe that there's a power out there that's greater than me. But what happens when I do? I get a relief. You know, the same 3rd step. Who wants to turn their mind and their life and their thinking and their actions and all their stuff over to God and get wrapped up from the bondage of their self? Sure, I love sitting around for hours thinking about myself. I don't want to stop doing that. I love nurturing me resentments and me fears and me things. But what happens when I do turn it over, I get instant relief. Same with a 4th step. Nobody wants to write down their list of fears, their list of resentments, their conduct, all that stuff. I get relief. And all the steps the whole way through are like that. And I know I could share, you know, an experience in every single step, like, you know, but you have to take your own. You have to have your own experience. And when I was going through my steps, my sponsor went back drinking when I was on step 11. And I got a new sponsor. And the lady that I got, what time do I have to shut up at? Martin, like 10, 15 minutes? Can someone tell me when that's up? What happened was, when I was going through, I was on step 10 or 11, and my sponsor went back drinking. She was a little bit nuts. I love her. I'm still in contact with her. She's still out drinking. But she tried to tell me to stay on the big book with her because she could drink because she was only a crack addict. Right? If anybody tells you that, run. Right? Thankfully I did. But somebody put me in touch with another lady. Oh, look, they heard I had 15 minutes left and they all left. Oh. But anyway, anybody else leaves, you're getting daggers. I'm watching. Even if you need to go to the toilet, you better piss in the sea. But anyway. Sorry, Martin. Sorry, I'll get serious. No. But I suppose I have a lovely message. I mightn't have shared it just yet, but I do have a lovely message about how God has turned up and showed off in my life. And if you're questioning God around here or the understanding of God, I often say to people, if you can believe from what I'm going to tell you and parts of my story that God has turned up and done for me what nothing else could have done, and then that's all the little belief and hope you need. It's just to believe that a power has definitely shown up for Edwina. And what happened when I was a couple of months in was that my sponsor went back drinking and a lady put me in touch with another lady in Cocaine Anonymous who I would have never met. And she became my sponsor, and she's still my sponsor today. And she took me through the steps, and we became very good friends. And her husband, who's also in Cocaine Anonymous, became a good friend of mine. And a year or two in, you know, she rang me one day giving out about her husband, as we do. You know, we like to give out about our partners, don't we, Mikey and Pink? And she said to me, you know, I need to stop being so hard on him. We were in the city centre today and we were walking down the street and there was a lady in the street that he saw, and it was the lady that had gone to prison for murdering his father. So his father had been murdered 10 years before that, and the lady who was on the street, he had seen her for the first time since she got out of prison. And these people knew everything about me, so I thought. And I said, Aisling, I don't know why this hasn't came up before, but that lady is my sister. So my sister had gone to prison for 10 years for killing my sponsor's father-in-law. And I had been in their home for 2.5 years, and that story had never came out. So she said, oh, I don't know how my husband's going to feel about that. I'm going to have to talk to him. So, you know, she talked to him and he said, because, you know, he's one of us and he works a good program, and he said, you know, it's nothing to do with Edwina. She didn't do it. You know, it was all alcoholism. You know, let's just continue on as normal. So we did. So my sister, who was homeless 5 years ago, got liver failure, and she hadn't been home for years, but she came to us then, came home to die basically. So she couldn't talk to my mother. It's really sad, actually. You know, I nursed her for the last month. She was dying, 3.5 weeks only. It's the only time I got with her. And but I'm really grateful for it. But while I was nursing her, I couldn't help but keep being so grateful for what we have in Cocaine Anonymous. She was so afraid to die. Now, I know her case might be extreme of taking a man's life, you know, but all of us come in here with guilt, with shame, with stories, with stuff we have done that we're not pleased of. And while she was dying, I kept saying to her, I know you're afraid, Tanya. I know you're afraid to die. And she was like, I'm not afraid. And then there'd be moments she'd say, I'm afraid I'm going to go to hell for what I've done. She was so scared she's going to go to hell for what she'd done. She was a roaring alcoholic, homeless, one on the streets for years, like. And she was only 39 when she died. And you know, we had some nice talks. But the last couple of days, she was really holding on. And my sponsor used to ring me every day. She wouldn't come and see me, obviously, but she used to ring me every day to check in. How's things today? How's things today? How's things today? And this particular day she rang and I said, you know, they're not good. She's very afraid. She's so afraid. And she said, her husband wants to know, can he come and sit with her? He hadn't seen her since the murder trial. And I said, yeah. So he came over and I told my sister, don't be afraid. He just wants to sit with you for a few minutes. And I left the two of them in the room on their own. And he came down, took me downstairs afterwards. And I was downstairs with five of my sisters and my mother. And I said, what did you say? And he said, I told her I forgave her. I told her, don't be afraid, I forgive you. He said, I told her that when I seen my father die in the circumstances he died in, which was all alcohol, it made me realise I don't want to live this way anymore. You know, it gave him the internal thing that he needed. And he forgave her. And she died a few hours after that. you know. And I share that story for, it's one of many ways how God has brought those two extremely broken families together. He kept that story out for that reason. We came together, there was forgiveness together, there was recovery together. We are really tight now and have been for the past few years together. And she was able to die. And I remember my mum crying, you know, thank you so much for forgiving me, baby. I mean, who here can say that they would be able to forgive somebody that? I don't think I would have been able to say it. He's an absolute demonstration of what's on offer around Cocaine Anonymous, what we can do when we walk through our stuff. I mean, he has helped me by that act. When I'm holding on to stuff that I can't forgive people with, when I was holding on to my resentments for years with my mother for what she done, you know, I'm like, need to know that God's more powerful than anything. You know, God can turn up and show off in anyone's life and perform them kind of miracles. And like, you know, she died and then she was buried a few days later on her 40th birthday. And Cocaine Anonymous and what's on offer around here is so much more than just giving up alcohol and drugs. There's so much more on offer. The brokenness that people come from, the brokenness that I have came from, and by entering in here, what has happened, Cocaine Anonymous was not alive in Tipperary. You know, there was no CA there. I used to have to travel 100 miles to Dublin to go to a CA meeting. You know, if anybody's sitting around giving them out about having to travel to meetings, you know, it was a 2-hour drive back and forth. Did I do it? Absolutely. Did I mind? No. I knew my life depended on it. I would have drove there for drugs. I used to drive regularly for drugs, you know. And then what I done then was, with the power of God, we opened up our own fellowship in Tipperary. We opened up one meeting 6 years ago, another meeting a few months after that, another meeting a few months after that. And that's how we grow. That is what our job is around here. It's not just to come here and recover and piss off. Our job is to come here to recover and to help other people and look the newcomer in the eye and tell them, you do not have to live the way you have been living. There is another way. Give this stuff a go. If you feel you can't get around the God thing, get hope that God has turned up in many other people's lives. You know, drugs and alcohol won't be long about persuading you to think that, you know. And I'll just finish on a little paragraph that I always read when I sit with a new man or woman, which is it's in Working with Others. And it says, it's probably one of me, well, no, I can't say it's my favourite because I say that about everything I read, but I do love it. It says, both you and the new man or woman must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. If you persist, remarkable things will happen. When we look back, we realise that the things which came to us were better than anything we could have planned. Anything. Follow the dictates of a higher power and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world. No matter what your present circumstances, no matter what is going on for you, you will get a new mind around here. When I came in, I was going through a divorce. I really thought I was going to get my marriage back. I worked really hard, super hard on the programme. Couldn't wait to get to step 9 to make the amend, to hope that he would come back to me. And when I made the amend, I thought, okay, it's going to be great. We're going to be all back together. And instead, he told me that his girlfriend was pregnant. I was devastated. But when I look back, I realised that the things which came to me when I trusted God and the programme were always better than anything I could have planned. And everything has been like that. And lots of ups and downs have happened. And you know what? In all the downs, the divorces, the dead sisters, my brother died 5 weeks ago of a heart attack. He was only 33. No matter what happens, it's going to be okay. No matter what happens, I know deep down inside me it's okay. No matter what happens, it's God's world. And as long as I can get on the plane, turn up and do my service, go to my meeting, turn up, that's my message. If you're here and you're asked to do anything in Cocaine Anonymous, just say yes, because that's what I've done for the last 8.5 years, and I've got a life better than anything I could have imagined. So I wish you all well, and thanks for having me.